Welcome to the Snooze Bureau, where the coziest stories are quietly stored in numbered files, and restful sleep is always encouraged. Tonight's episode is a slow, rainy wander through a flower market in Amsterdam. Long before the city is fully awake, you'll follow the gentle rhythm of buckets being filled, petals being arranged, and quiet conversations that feel like whispered poetry. It's a calm morning, full of scent, color, and soft routines. A place where even the sound of a wobbly cart becomes music. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more cozy storytelling, designed to help you fall asleep faster and wake up lighter. Leave a comment letting us know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. We love hearing from fellow sleepyheads around the world. Now take a deep breath, pull the covers up, and let's drift into this peaceful market morning together. The alarm rings at 4:17 in the morning. It vibrates softly on the little wooden nightstand next to your bed, and for a second, you wonder why you picked that exact time. Then you remember, 4:17 gives you a full 3 minutes to slowly open your eyes, stretch your arms, listen to the creaks in the apartment, and finally get up. No rush, just respecting the body that's still half inside a dream. You're staying in a tiny short-term rental apartment in a residential neighborhood of Amsterdam called the Barges. The building is old, made of brown brick, with stairs that creak, not in a bad way, but in an honest, lived-in kind of way. Through your bedroom window, which faces a narrow street lined with trees, you can't see the sky yet. It's still dark, and it's damp. You know that even before opening the curtain, you get up slowly, let your feet touch the wooden floor, and, like every morning, you're surprised by the chill that climbs up your heels. You smile. You expect that by now. Thick socks, sweatpants, 2 shirts, and the wool coat you bought at a thrift store here in town. A scarf wrapped around your neck. You run your fingers through your hair, still quiet. In the small kitchen, just a counter, an electric kettle, and a cabinet with 2 mugs. You heat some water. While it warms, you crack the window open just a little. The air comes in like a polite guest, carrying the smell of Dutch dawn, damp, fresh, with the faintest trace of bread baking somewhere far away. You make coffee, strong, bitter, small, in a mug with red tulips painted on the side. One you found in the cabinet the day you arrived. Steam rises and dances in slow spirals under the soft light of the kitchen lamp. You sip it slowly, nothing in your hands, just watching out the window. The world is still quiet, but not for long. By the door, your backpack is ready. A bottle of water, your gloves, a little notebook, a pencil, and a pack of cookies that will probably turn into your lunch. You sling the backpack on, pull your hat under your hood, and open the apartment door. The building stairs make noise, that old wood on footsteps kind of sound that feels like memory. You walk down slowly. When you reach the ground floor, the entryway is empty, and outside, the world feels like it's made of soft darkness and distant headlights. Your bike is right where you always leave it, locked to the railing outside. You run your hand across the seat. It's damp from the night's mist, and hop on. The sky is still navy blue. No birds singing yet, no cars, just the sound of your pedaling cutting through the city in silence. Amsterdam, still asleep, looks like a slow painting. You ride along the bike paths with your light on low and your eyes wide open. You pass old street lamps casting a yellow glow over cobblestones. Shop windows are dark, but inside you can still make out the silhouettes of flower pots, bicycles, sheer curtains, stacks of books, a world tucked in, paused, resting. The air smells like canal water, dampness, old leaves, cold metal, and something slightly sweet, like a crushed flower drifting on the wind. You take it all in at once, your face cold, breath visible. It's a mix that won't exist anywhere else, not even tomorrow. You turn left onto Jan Peter Heijestraat, where a flower shop with a red awning is already getting deliveries. Two men quietly unload boxes from a truck. You pass by them in slow motion. One gives a small smile. The other nods with his chin. Tiny gestures that say, "Good morning, welcome back." And you smile back, because you're happy to be here. Happy to wake up early and ride through a city that doesn't mind being watched. A city that offers details to those willing to look. A faded sticker on a pole. A curtain that moves even with no wind. A sky blue bicycle abandoned in a corner. Garden. Closer to the market, the smell of flowers grows stronger. But it's not a perfume kind of smell. It's the scent of cut stems, of standing water in zinc buckets, of damp wood and soil. It clings to your clothes, and you like it. You park your bike by the market's iron gate. It's still closed, but you can see lights inside. Someone already started. There's always someone who starts first. You rest your forehead against the cold metal bar and close your eyes for a moment. Then it opens. No big announcement, no creak. Cohen, the oldest staff member at the market, unlocks the gate with the calm of someone who's done it every day for the last 30 years. He doesn't talk much, always wears the same gray cap, always holds his coffee mug with both hands. He looks at you and simply says, "Guten Morgen." You nod and walk in. The light inside isn't bright. It's soft and golden, reflecting off metal buckets. The cards are all lined up, the counters still empty. But the market is already breathing, like a body that just woke up and is stretching its limbs. You take off your gloves, slide your hands into your coat pockets, take a slow step between the quiet aisles, and you think, quietly, this is going to be one of those days I remember. Crossing the market gate feels like stepping into a different kind of time. A time that starts earlier, moves slower, and smells like freshly cut leaves. You walk past a stack of empty wooden crates piled up against the wall. The wood is raw, still marked with bits of soil in the corners. One of them has a piece of tape that says Frisia, Lot 2. Another is scribbled with what looks like a date and a Dutch word you don't understand yet. But somehow, it all makes sense. Everything here seems to have a purpose, even if it doesn't say it out loud. Cohen walks ahead of you, taking slow, steady steps. He sips his coffee carefully, almost like it's part of a ritual. He switches on the lights above the work tables, using a small button hidden near the side door. The lights aren't white. They're warm and soft, as if chosen specifically not to bother the flowers. You take off your hat, tuck your gloves into your backpack, and again, you notice that smell. A mix of everything. Closed up flowers, clean water, cold metal, and the faint trace of damp paper. Cohen disappears into a corridor of crates, and for a few minutes, you're alone. You move slowly through the main aisle. There's no activity yet, just the faint sound of a cart rolling somewhere, probably across the building. The floor is wet in places, with the small puddles reflecting the tall stained glass windows. Above, the sound of your footsteps is soft. It's like the morning moisture is soaking up all the noise. On your left, one table already has a few buckets lined up. White tulips, still closed like little fists. Yellow gerberas, still damp. A few sprigs of eucalyptus. Everything arranged with care, like they're getting ready for a portrait. You rest your hand on one of the metal buckets. It's cold. Your reflection shimmers faintly in its surface. You smile and decide to begin. You pull one of the empty display carts, the one with the slightly crooked wheel that always pulls to the left. It squeaks in a familiar way. You feel the weight of it, the cold of the handle, and begin pushing it down the aisle toward the chrysanthemum section. On the way, you pass Bram, the delivery guy. He's wearing headphones but takes one out when he sees you. "Hey," he says in that Dutch accent that makes the R sound almost like a gargle. "Morning," you reply, almost whispering. He points toward a stack of boxes behind him and says something about an early delivery. You only catch half of it, but he smiles, and you smile too. Then you keep going. Farther ahead, two men are speaking Polish, near the Narcissus section. One of them is wearing bright yellow rubber gloves, stacking buckets with the ease of someone who's done it for years. The other holds a folded notebook, making notes with a pen attached by a rubber band. You pass by with your cart, and both of them give you a small nod, the kind that says, "You're part of this." Everything here has a rhythm, a quiet, respectful, practiced rhythm. Nobody rushes, nobody shouts. There's work, but there's also care. For the space, the sound, the flowers. You position your cart next to an empty table and start loading it. Big buckets first, then the smaller ones. Each one gets a tag, price, flower name, country of origin. Some are from the Netherlands. Others came from Italy, Kenya, Colombia. It's a whole world hidden inside one market. You grab a bunch of pink alstromerias. They're still mostly closed, but the green tips are starting to open. You place them gently in the bucket, arrange the leaves, check the water level, then you look. The overhead light, reflecting on the damp petals, creates tiny flickers of shine that move when you tilt your head, as if the flowers were quietly blinking at you. You pause, just looking, and you feel something simple, contentment. It's not excitement, not joy in the loud sense, just a calm feeling that you're exactly where you need to be, doing something small but meaningful, something no one might notice, but that adds to the chain of beauty. The metal doors at the back open with a groan, and more light comes in. Now it's daylight, bluish, soft, unhurried. It mixes with the warm indoor lights and casts gentle shadows across the walls. You check the time. 5:42 a.m. The city is starting to wake up. You hear a horn in the distance, then a bike bell, then the faint hum of a tram gliding down the tracks. But inside here, the rhythm stays the same. Cohen reappears, this time with a clipboard in hand. He walks over slowly, looks at your cart, checks the tags, and says, "Looking good. Just be careful not to get the labels wet." You nod. Then he points toward the little coffee stand in the back. "Grab a coffee. It's on the house today." You thank him and walk over to the tiny kiosk, where a guy in a blue apron is pouring fresh drip coffee into paper cups. There's a basket of sweet rolls and a jar of brown sugar. You choose a raisin bun and a black coffee. He doesn't ask anything, just hands them over with a sleepy smile. You sit on an empty crate, leaning against the wall, and eat slowly. In front of you, the aisle is coming to life. More carts appear, more staff. Some flowers are already being repositioned on tables. The market is waking up gently, without rushing. You watch it all with the eyes of someone who's traveling, because that's how you feel, like you're traveling, even if you're standing still, even if you're just pushing buckets and sticking on labels. You're in a different country, living a different pace, hearing a different language, and all of it feels like part of the experience. As you finish the raisin bun, you wonder if maybe you could live like this for a while. Maybe not forever, but for a few more mornings. Just to keep feeling this smell, this silence, this sense of belonging. The clock says 5:59 a.m. The market isn't open to the public yet, but you're already inside, where everything begins. And that's enough. You finish your coffee with both hands wrapped around the paper cup. The drink isn't hot anymore, but it still tastes like morning. The raisin bun leaves sweet crumbs on your fingers, and you wipe your hands on a little cloth you brought in your pocket. Everything is still kind of quiet, but the market has started to pulse with a different rhythm, livelier, full of promise. You get up and slowly walk over to the cart area. There they are, the tall, narrow, clanky metal carts from Royal Flora Holland. You've gotten used to the names, the codes, the layout, but the magic, that never fades. There's something special about the way the carts are stacked and then set, free to roam the warehouse, like each one has its own destination. You grab one with a red mark on the side and a number in black, TO6B. Tulips, aisle 6, row B. At least, that's what you think it means. It gives a small squeak as it starts rolling. The front wheel wobbles a little. You know that sound. It's always there, like a personal signature. You guide the car through stacks of boxes. Some are empty, others packed with flowers wrapped in tissue paper, printed with logos from cooperatives in other countries. Cardboard boxes have labels in Dutch, French, English. Some flowers have traveled thousands of miles to be here, just waiting for their place on a display. And in the end, they might end up in someone's hands. Someone who will never know their full journey. As you push the cart, you watch the others. Everyone has their own way of moving, their own rhythm. Some people work in silence, focused, like Cohen. Others hum softly, like the blonde woman from the side greenhouse, the one who always brings in narcissus and wears lime green sneakers. Today, she walks past you, holding a bouquet of freesias, so fragrant, you almost lose track of where you're going. The sweet, fresh, slightly citrusy scent makes you stop for a moment. You close your eyes just to take it in completely. And you think, what a privilege to work in a place where the air smells different with every step. You keep going with your cart. It's still a bit empty, so you decide to fill it with flowers from the central area, where the buckets of roses are. Red, white, salmon, lavender. Some still closed tight like tiny fists. Others wide open like they're calling someone by name. You pick them carefully. 3 red, 2 white, 1 lavender. No real plan, just the rhythm of what feels right. Then you grab some greenery to balance the look. That's something you've picked up from watching others. It's not just about moving flowers. It's almost choreography. An older woman walks by and says something in Dutch. You don't catch the whole sentence, but you hear the word mooi, beautiful. She points at the arrangement you're making and smiles. You nod with a shy smile of your own, and she keeps going, pushing a cart covered with a blue plastic tarp. The rails on the floor guide the carts smoothly. They were designed for this. The constant flow of flowers that come in, go out, settle in, get noticed. You follow the path like you're on an invisible line drawn gently between the aisles. Outside, the sky is starting to brighten. Through the high window on the side of the warehouse, you catch the first rays of sunlight coming in at an angle, cutting through the dust in the air. It's a soft light, almost liquid, and it spills across the tables like a quiet blessing. You park your cart in a good spot between the chrysanthemums and the dahlias, and you start organizing. Each bucket has its proper side. Each stem needs room to breathe. You turn a rose slightly, remove a crumpled leaf, swap out some cloudy water. There's a kind of peace in this, a kind of quiet focus that goes perfectly with the sounds of the market. Wheels turning, soft voices, water trickling from a hose, a far-off radio playing something instrumental and slow. You wipe down a table with a cotton cloth you keep in your pocket. It smells like plain soap and lavender. While you scrub the wood, you think about how everything here was made to last. The market feels old and new at the same time. Some furniture looks like it was made yesterday. Others have clearly seen 3 generations of florists come and go. When you finish, you take a step back and look. Your cart looks good, simple, but good. An arrangement that makes sense, and it fills you with a kind of quiet pride. The kind you don't put on a resume, and that doesn't need a certificate. Just the quiet satisfaction of straightening the tablecloth in a home you love. One of the supervisors walks by and checks things from a distance. He doesn't say a word, but gives a thumbs up. You answer with a small smile. Here, compliments aren't spoken. They're gestures. You head back into the aisle to pick up more flowers. On the way, you pass a young guy, probably a student. He's got a backpack and that curious look, the one you had on your first day. He watches you closely, like he's trying to figure out your process. You make space for him, and he thanks you quietly. That kind of exchange happens all the time here. This shared idea that everyone is different, but connected by something simple. Care for beauty, the kind of beauty found in a bouquet, a handwritten label, a clean bucket, a respected silence. You crouch down to pick up a bunch of lilies that haven't opened yet. They already smell strong. It's a creamy kind of scent. You hold them with both hands like a gift, and for a moment, you wonder if maybe they are. As you carry the lilies back, you hear someone laughing up ahead, a short, dry, real laugh. Probably a joke told in a low voice. And you feel like part of this quiet harmony, like a note in a melody. Back at your cart, the sunlight hits the lilies in a different way. They shine, even though they're still closed, like little promises. And you think, without saying it out loud, maybe they'll be open tomorrow. There's a moment during the shift when the market seems to take a deeper breath, not more hectic, not calmer, just more present. It's when the buckets start multiplying across the floor. like tiny islands of water and flowers. And that's when you step in to do your favorite task, refilling. You head to the back of the warehouse, where the big metal faucets are mounted straight into the brick wall. Next to them, there's a huge concrete sink that's probably seen more flowers than most weddings. Hanging from a hook is a thick, greenish-blue hose, still dripping from the last person who used it. The floor around it is always wet, but never slippery, like it's already made peace with this daily rhythm of water and rolling wheels. You pull the hose gently. It makes a low sound as it uncoils, like a yawn. The first burst of water shoots out too fast and splashes your glove. You laugh to yourself. You always forget the first burst is impatient. You adjust the pressure and start filling the first buckets. All zinc, all the same shape, but each one with its own little detail. One has a small dent on the bottom. Another is marked with the number 9 in permanent marker. Another has a taped-on label that says Gerberus in someone's loopy handwriting. You don't take it off. You like how these marks tell little stories. As you fill each one, you watch the water swirl at the bottom. It spins in a tiny whirlpool before settling. You take a moment to watch that little swirl, pointless and perfect, like watching a short film only you get to see. Each bucket takes about the same amount of water. You know it by feel now, by weight, by how it moves. Still, sometimes you let it fill a little more, just to hear the gentle sound water makes when it reaches the top. You start placing the buckets across the tables, 1 here, 2 there, then back to the hose. More water, more buckets. The path forms naturally as you walk, and there's something almost choreographed about it all, like every step is part of a dance only you know. Cohen walks by in the background, dragging a line of buckets tied together with a makeshift rope, like a herd of metal cattle. He glances your way and points to the right side of the warehouse. The chrysanthemums need fresh water. You nod. Got it. You head over. There are a lot of them, in shades of orange, burgundy, white, yellow. They're common flowers, but they always seem alert, like they're paying close attention to the world around them. You remove the old buckets carefully. Some have floating leaves, fallen petals, murky water. You carry 2 at a time, back to the big sink. You dump the water out with a slow tilt. The leaves hit the concrete with a soft, wet plop. You hear everything, even the gurgle as the water disappears down the drain. Then you refill the buckets. You scrub each one first with a little brush you keep next to the sink. You scrub the sides, clear out the bits of stems and petals stuck to the bottom. The smell of dirty water mixes with the smell of fresh flowers, a mix that only makes sense here. While you clean, you think about how each bucket is part of something bigger, and how no one really notices them when they're in the right place. Clean, full, where they belong, but just one out of place, and everything feels off. You carry the clean buckets back. One by one, you place them in the metal stands. Adjust the flowers with your fingers. Some of the stems are bent from time. You turn them gently. Others have opened more since your last shift. You smile when you notice. You keep going like this for almost an hour, but it doesn't feel repetitive. Each bucket is its own little mission. Each flower, a secret someone trusted you with. Somewhere in the background, someone walks by with music playing from their phone. It leaks from their earbuds. A soft French song. A woman singing about open windows and chilly mornings. It fits the mood perfectly. You don't know the song, but you already like it. In the corner of the aisle, a man in a green cap is arranging a bunch of lilies. He's murmuring something while he works. Maybe singing, maybe talking to the flowers. When he notices you watching, he raises a hand like, "Keep going. Don't mind me." You do just that. More buckets, more water. Now it's time for the dahlias. One of them is fully open, deep red with almost black edges. It's beautiful, almost too much. It's so alive. You hold the bloom for a second, like asking for permission, and place it back gently. Small puddles start forming on the floor. The sunlight, now stronger, pours through the windows and hits the water just right. Little bits of liquid sky scattered across the old concrete floor. You pause just to see how the light shifts as the water ripples. Someone sneezes near the entrance, a quiet, real sneeze. Reality always finds a way in. And still, everything stays beautiful. You wipe your shoes on the edge of the rubber mat, dry your hands on the cotton cloth you carry in your pocket, and return to the table. There are more people now, more footsteps, more voices, more flowers being touched, moved, wrapped. The market is fully awake, but your rhythm doesn't change, still soft, still focused, still full of care. You finish the last round of buckets, turn off the faucet with a click, and coil the hose back onto the hook. It drips 3 times before stopping. On your way back to your section, you find Bram leaning against one of the carts. He's sipping something from a thermos and offers you a honey cake wrapped in a napkin. Want one? You say yes. Thank him with your eyes. Take a bite. It tastes like ginger and clove, and something sweet you can't quite name. And maybe you don't want to name it. It's better just imagining. You lean against the cart and watch the market move, like a giant garden being built in real time. A garden with no owner, no gate, no sign, but full of hands. And you think, maybe all beauty comes from this. The quiet, messy, soaked gesture no one notices. But that changes everything. You've already finished placing all the buckets. The market floor is damp, but not slippery, like the water knows exactly where to stop. You walk slowly to a table of freshly delivered roses, checking tags, straightening leaves, fixing the ones leaning to the side. And then you hear Cohen's voice. "I saw you talking to the dahlias this morning." You smile. "I talk to everyone, even the buckets." He nods, like that's completely normal. And maybe here, it is. In this market, nothing feels strange, and nothing feels urgent. Cohen is the kind of man who always wears the same expression, not exactly serious, but firmly neutral. The look of someone who's seen a lot of flowers, a lot of mornings, and learned not to be surprised by any of them, yet still cares for each one. He takes another sip from his coffee, always in that same white enamel mug, stained inside from years of use. Then he gestures with his chin toward a stack of hydrangeas wrapped in wax paper. "If you want, you can take those to aisle 3. They're putting together a new display." You nod, sure, and head over to the stack. Each bundle is light but bulky, and the paper makes a soft, elegant rustling sound, like it's saying, "I'm here, but I'm not in a hurry." As you walk past a woman with a messy bun setting out flower pots, her face still somewhere between sleep and full consciousness. You hear a long yawn, one of those unfiltered early morning yawns. She passes you and says, "It's still Tuesday, right?" You nod with a smile. "Feels like Wednesday. Or Monday, twice." You both laugh quietly. It's a bad joke, but good enough to break the morning fog. She stretches her arms, holds up a flower like she's testing its weight, and disappears behind the orchids. These little exchanges are what make the market feel like more than just work. It's like a parallel world, a place where no one really knows each other's names, but everyone recognizes the footsteps, the scents, the rhythms. A quiet community stitched together by small gestures. You get to aisle 3 and find Janek, the Polish worker with big hands and a shy smile. He's kneeling, arranging the metal stands for the new display. "Need help?" you ask. He looks up slowly and says, "Yes," in his thick but friendly accent. You set the bundles of hydrangeas down on a wooden table, and the two of you start unwrapping them together quietly. The paper tears with a soft sound. The stems fan out like folding fans. The flowers are shades of blue, pink, and a pale green that's almost white. Janek points at one and says, "This one looks like cotton, but it's a real flower." You agree. On impulse, you sniff one still beaded with water droplets. It smells like a very shy spring afternoon. Janek keeps arranging. Then he says, "In my country, hydrangeas are cemetery flowers." You glance up, a little surprised. "Really?" "Yes. But here they feel different, more alive." You pause a moment. Maybe every flower means something different depending on where you are. He smiles, a little embarrassed, and goes back to his task. As you both arrange the hydrangeas, another worker walks by and sets down a box of peonies. They're still closed, but already releasing the sweetest scent in the market. You close your eyes for a second, like you're bottling the smell in an invisible jar. Cohen reappears, now without his mug. There's fresh coffee in the back room. If you want some, you nod gratefully and head there. The back room feels like an improvised kitchen. A table with a sunflower print plastic tablecloth, a big coffee pot, 3 mismatched mugs, and a jar of butter cookies. A radio plays quietly. Someone's jacket is draped over a chair. It feels like home. You pour the coffee slowly and carry your mug to a chair by the window. The glass is foggy. Outside, you can see part of the canal and a houseboat with lace curtains. The coffee is hot, strong, a little burnt. But in that moment, it's the best coffee in the world. Bram walks in a minute later. He grabs a cookie, sits across from you, and says, "You hear the Van Halstraat lady called again?" You shake your head. She said she wants peonies that are less showy, and that last week you picked too much flower. You laugh. She ordered a birthday bouquet. What did she expect? Broccoli. Bram gives a dry chuckle and bites his cookie. Who knows whither? The conversation ends there. You both sit in silence for a few minutes, listening to the sound of coffee being sipped and a soft old song playing on the radio, probably from the 70s, in Dutch. You finish your mug and stand up. Bram does the same. Without saying anything, the two of you leave the room and head back into the warehouse. Out there, the market feels busier now, more alive, but still with that same rhythm, gentle easy, unhurried. You find Cohen leaning on a table, watching the aisle like someone watches a river. He's not doing anything, just standing there, observing. "Pretty, right?" he says, nodding toward the hydrangeas. You nod. They are. But I think, today, the peony's the star. He gives a half smile, then crosses his arms and says, "Yeah, peonies are like people who only smile at folks they trust. For everyone else, they stay closed." You look at him, surprised. You've never heard Cohen say anything that poetic. He notices, and quickly changes the subject with a hand wave toward the buckets. "We'll need to refill the ones on the east side. Can you take care of that?" You nod. But before heading off, you glance again at the peony you'd been holding earlier. Now, it's sitting in the display, just a little more open, like it really had been listening. You've gotten used to the market's rhythm, and within that rhythm, there are little rituals that never fail. One of them is the arrival of the peony lady. She always shows up at exactly 6:10 a.m. You don't need a clock to know. She is the clock. Same navy blue coat, same white scarf with tiny embroidered flowers, same brown leather purse that looks like it's been through decades. She walks slowly, but with purpose, like someone fully aware of every step she takes. Her hair, pulled into a low bun, reveals silver strands that shimmer like flower petals, turned toward the sun. She doesn't say much, but everything about her seems to speak, especially the way she approaches the peony table. Never directly. She always stops beside it first, removes her gloves, folds them carefully, and tucks them into her coat pocket. Then she adjusts her scarf. Only then does she step up to the flowers. Today is no different. You're arranging a small bunch of sunflowers when you feel her presence, not from her steps or sound, but from the kind of silence she brings. A pause in time. You turn slowly and watch her discreetly. She leans slightly over the peony bucket, runs her fingers just above the petals without touching. She studies them one by one, as if looking for something only she would recognize. You've tried to figure out her system, color, shape, size, but you've never been able to predict which one she'll choose. Sometimes it's the plainest, sometimes one with extra leaves, and always, after she chooses, she closes her eyes for a second, like she's listening to something. Today, she chooses a pale pink one, the edges just starting to open. You watch as she gently lifts it from the bucket with both hands, holding it by the stem like it's sacred. Then she turns to you and smiles, a small smile that takes its time, but feels like a gift when it arrives. "These flowers know how to wait," she says, her voice soft, slightly accented. "Not every flower knows how to wait." You smile back calmly. "They always recognize you," you say. She smiles with her eyes, then glances around, as if making sure the market is still the same. "My husband used to bring me peonies every year," she says. "Only peonies, never any others. He never said why. One day I asked. He said, 'Because your smile is different when you hold a peony.' You don't know what to say to that, so you just nod." She goes on. "After he passed, I started coming here myself, and every time I look for that same smile." She holds the flower close to her chest for a moment, like she's saying thank you. You step closer and ask, "Would you like me to wrap it?" "No," she says. "I like carrying it like this." And then she leaves, walking slowly with the flower in hand, as if it were part of her, as if she and the peony were one and the same. You watch her until she disappears through the side door, where sunlight is starting to stream in. Then you turn back to your table. The flowers seem more beautiful after she passes. It's strange, but they look like they've straightened up, like they've been noticed, like they want to be chosen too. You run your fingers across one, still closed peony. You remember what she said. These flowers know how to wait, and you think the world might be full of things just like that, waiting to be noticed by someone with time, with attention, with care. Janek approaches with a box of greenery and asks, "She talked to you today?" You nod. "Every time she talks," he says, "I feel lighter. Once she told me I had florist's hands. I didn't wear gloves for 2 days just to feel it more." You both laugh. Janek sets the greenery down at the next table and adds, "One day I'll ask her to pick a flower for me." "What would you do with it?" you ask. He thinks for a second, then replies, "Maybe tuck it in a book, close it, and forget." You like that answer, because it makes sense, even if it doesn't have to. Cohen walks by with a clipboard in hand. He reminds you both to check the buckets in the east wing, where the foot traffic is picking up. Some customers wander the aisles like they're in an art gallery. Everything is being looked at with care, with longing, with a quiet kind of respect. You see a woman in a blue beret take a photo of a display of anemones. A young man pulls a sketch pad from his coat and starts drawing. A child points at the sunflowers and grins with their whole face. It's a choreography of people and flowers, and you're in the middle of it, not just watching, but part of the scene. Back at your cart, you rearrange the stems. One of the peonies has leaned over too far. You gently turn it in the bucket so it stands tall again. And then, almost without realizing, you do what the woman did. You close your eyes for a moment, in silence, and you listen to what doesn't make a sound. Everything was going just fine. The morning light was spreading more confidently now, slipping through the tall windows of the warehouse. The early fog had pulled back like a sleepy cat, curling into the corners to make way for a lazy warmth trickling in through the glass. And the smell of flowers was shifting, no longer just humidity, but personality. Each one seemed to wake up with its own voice. The sweetness of the gerberas, the woodsy scent of eucalyptus, the sharp spice of freesia, a quiet chorus with no conductor. You were near the east wing, checking the water level in one of the lily buckets when you heard it. Not a crash, nothing alarming, just a muffled clack, 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 metallic, almost polite, followed by a soft splash, the sound of something giving up gently, as if it didn't want to bother anyone, but couldn't stand upright any longer. You turned slowly. There it was. A tower of empty buckets collapsed near the entrance to the chrysanthemum section. It didn't feel like an accident. It felt like those buckets had been arguing for days and had finally agreed, together, to take a break. They fell like lazy dominoes. None flew far. Nothing broke. Each one landed with its own posture. One stood on its side, wobbling a little. Another spun 3 times before settling. One flipped upside down against a bench leg, like a child throwing a silent tantrum. You stood still for a moment, hands still inside the lily bucket, watching. It felt like time had paused. Even the radio seemed to lower its volume, though no one had touched the dial. Two co-workers turned to look as well. One of them, the new guy who sketches during breaks and always brings neatly cubed sandwiches, let out a sigh and said, "That was beautiful." And it was, in a very particular way, as if even the fall had been choreographed, a clumsy, elegant ballet of metal cylinders deciding they wanted a different shape. You walked over slowly. The buckets were still cold to the touch. Little droplets of water clung to their bottoms, even though they were technically empty. Most looked fine, but one, just one, caught your attention. Inside, someone had painted thin brush strokes of green and blue, a hidden doodle, maybe a secret signature. You tilted the bucket toward the light. The colors shimmered on the aluminum, subtle but alive, like a memory that insists on staying. You set that one aside and began stacking the rest, one by one. The sound of metal clicking into place was strangely comforting, like the quiet turning of book pages. And you wondered, how many times had these buckets fallen before? How many times were they stacked too fast? How many different hands had touched them, not knowing their quiet stories? Janik appeared with a cart full of daisies. He saw you kneeling and raised an eyebrow. Sometimes the market knocks things over just to remind us it's alive, he said, without stopping. You smiled and nodded. The last bucket, the one that had landed upside down, was dented on the side. You picked it up and tried to press the shape back into place with your thumbs. It gave a little, but didn't return completely. Now, it was crooked, but in a good way. Like an old armchair everyone prefers, or a hat passed down from a sweet grandpa. You stacked it last, on top, like placing a cherry on a makeshift cake. When you finished, you noticed the floor around it. You was still damp. The water from the fallen buckets had gathered in shallow puddles. Some reflected the hanging lights above. Others showed the nearest blooms in soft color, but one, centered and still, showed your own reflection, silver in shadow, a portrait taken by a wet mirror, a portrait that didn't smile, but paid attention. You took a deep breath. The air had shifted again, now sweeter, warmer, like an invitation. The gerberas stretched like they were waking up. The tulips, shy just moments ago, seemed looser. The dahlias were gaining volume with a quiet sort of elegance. Even the ever-serious chrysanthemums had softened just a little, like the entire market had acknowledged what happened and approved. Cohen passed by, balancing a box of white orchids. He paused briefly, assessing the new stack. Something fall. You nodded toward it. It decided to lie down. Cohen looked carefully. Sometimes gravity runs its own inventory. Then he moved on, box in one hand, coffee in the other, like a tightrope walker in a daily circus. You watched him disappear between the aisles. Back at your station, the messy bun girl was leaning against the field flower bench. She was scrolling on her phone with one hand and holding a thick piece of bread in the other. The same kind of bread she always has. Thick crust, soft middle, chewed edges. That was you who picked them up. Yeah. Thanks. I stacked that tower. Probably did it lazy. Or maybe it just needed a break, you said. She chuckled without looking up. Want a bite? You shook your head no, but smiled in thanks. From where you stood, you could see the rebuilt stack, shorter, slightly crooked, but full of life. And the painted bucket, still separate from the rest, sat in the corner like it was waiting for something special. You listened, then picked it up and walked to the table where they kept the odd flowers, the ones with crooked stems, off colors, petals that had opened too soon, the ones that didn't quite fit in a bouquet. Inside the bucket, you placed one small lilac flower. No one knew the name of 2 daisies with bent leaves, a sprig of fragrant eucalyptus, a tiny orange rose already wilting a little. You attached a tag with a rubber band. Morning miscellany. Yannick passed again, pushing a stack of perfect buckets. He stopped, looked at yours. I like that. It's just a quick fix, you said. So is beauty, he replied, and walked away. You stayed there for a while longer, elbows on the table, chin in your hand. The market carried on. Wheels rolled, voices returned. The volume of the morning rose again, but something had shifted. That bucket wasn't full of flowers, not really. It was full of attention. And maybe, just maybe, everything had fallen that morning so you'd slow down and notice, somewhere between arranging the chrysanthemums and the arrival of the first orchids, you feel it's time to take a short break. Not because you're tired, your hands are still warm from the water, your back only slightly tense, but because there's something sacred about this unofficial pause. It's not on the clock, but everyone seems to feel it, like the market itself whispers. Now, breathe, go. You walk slowly through the central aisle. The sunlight is already coming in at a slight angle through the high windows, gently touching the petals like it's asking permission. You pass a short woman pushing a cart full of glass boxes with tiny succulents lined up inside. They wobble a little, almost like they're waving at you. She smiles. You smile back. No one here rushes. No one honks. No one yells. Flowers don't like being rushed, and they set the pace. The coffee kiosk sits tucked in a back corner, just past the sunflowers. Doesn't have a big sign. No menu either. Just a small wooden window under a slightly crooked light green awning. Below it, a makeshift counter holds a stack of paper cups, packets of sugar, wooden stirrers, and a little basket of sweetbreads, covered by a checkered napkin. No one knows who brings those pastries. They're just there, like the flowers, every morning. The barista is one of those people who seem to live in the details. Thin, curly hair, always wearing a faded black t-shirt with a worn-out design. He always has one earbud in, just the left one, and doesn't talk much. But somehow, he always knows what everyone wants before they ask. Maybe he reads minds, or maybe he just knows the rhythm of the place. As soon as he sees you, he sets a paper cup on the counter and starts pouring. No words needed. You lean your elbows on the worn wood. The smell of coffee rises like a warm curtain, earthy, slightly burnt, with hints of cocoa and maybe something citrusy, like orange peel forgotten in a drawer. It's not the fanciest coffee you've ever had, but it has soul, and soul doesn't need perfect filters. Almost hot today, he says, filling it close to the brim. Better that way. Won't burn my tongue. He shrugs. Life should be like that too. Almost hot, almost ready. You smile. Pay with the coin you already had in your pocket. Because this moment happens the same way every day. You hold the cup in both hands. The heat seeps into your fingers, up your wrists. For a moment, the whole world outside feels like it dissolves into the steam curling from the coffee. You sit at your usual spot, seat number 4. The stools are low, made of solid wood, each marked with a painted number. The paint is chipped. Number 4 creaks a little on the left side, and you already know exactly where to rest your foot so it doesn't wobble. Sitting there is like a small dance. You've learned every move. While you sip, the market continues in the distance, but from here, it all feels gentler. The radio plays something soft, maybe a saxophone, maybe a clarinet. It's hard to tell. A flute hums in the background, painting the air like a gentle brush stroke. The voices around you blend into background noise, like water in a creek, like petals brushing against each other. Janek shows up with a sweet bun wrapped in recycled napkin paper. He sits next to you with the comfort of someone who's done this 1,000 times. He pulls out one earbud, takes a bite, and then asks thoughtfully, "Do you think flowers can hear us?" You smile, not rushing to answer. You stare into your cup. Feel the heat still coming off the top. I think they do. Not with ears, but with time. He nods. Sometimes I'm sure my favorite ones settle in faster. Like they know they're going to someone who will love them. Maybe it's just because you handle the ones you like with more care. Maybe it's both. A secret agreement. You both chuckle, but you don't keep talking. Because you don't need to. The silence lasts several long minutes. A good silence. Full of coffee smell, quiet sips, and the soft creak of wood beneath your shoes. Yannick's presence doesn't take up space. It just fills it. Your coffee is cooling now. It doesn't warm your hands anymore. But the taste is still there, slightly bitter, like a walnut shell, or a memory you can't quite place. You take the last sips slowly, watching what little steam remains fade into the air. Across the room, Bram walks in. He always looks half tired, half satisfied. His jacket collar is crooked, and there's a chrysanthemum leaf stuck to his shoulder. "Did I miss the bucket collapse?" he asks in that dry, late to everything tone. You did, and it was beautiful. Classic. I always miss the best disasters. He grabs a cinnamon roll, sits farther down, and stares at his phone without really looking, just scrolling, his thumb making slow circles like he's sketching something invisible. You stretch your arms a little. It's not the tired kind of stretch. It's the stretch of someone who just got warm again, like waking up a second time. Not from sleep, but into presence. You stand, toss your cup in the bin, and thank the barista with a glance. He's already pouring another coffee for someone who hasn't even shown up yet. He gives a 2-finger wave. Could mean good job, or see you later, or maybe just take it easy. You walk past the aisle of wildflowers. A new box has been opened. The flowers still look sleepy. The air smells different here. Damp moss, fresh stems, rain forgotten on leaves. You breathe it in slowly, like a rare perfume. You trim stems, replace water. Watch a leaf spin 3 times before landing on the floor. You feel lighter. Was it the coffee? Was it Yannick? Was it the silence with a taste of sweet bread? Maybe it was the ritual, that little moment that doesn't rest your body, but somehow restores your place. The pause that doesn't stop the day, just connects it. You walk past a framed mirror on the wall. It's fogged over from the humidity. Your reflection is a little ghost-like, but still you. You look for 2 seconds, then think, I'm okay here, and you go back to work, smiling, because deep down, you know, that almost hot coffee was in a way, the very heart of your morning. There's a moment, right around 7:20 a.m., when everything subtly shifts. The sound of rolling carts is still there. Light footsteps, the hose being wound up, the distant clink of buckets bumping into each other, even the quiet snip of pruning, shears. Nothing really changes. The scene is the same, but something's different. And it's not the sound, it's the gaze. It's as if in one invisible second, the flowers stop being a task and start becoming a show. As if the market suddenly becomes aware of itself. You sense it before you even see it. It's almost like a sixth sense. The air thickens slightly, like the moment before stage lights go up. Your body keeps moving, but your mind pauses to watch. The first signs are in how your coworkers carry themselves. Their shoulders lift a bit. Their gestures get more precise. Someone across the freesia section is wiping down a glass surface with the care of someone polishing heirloom silver. Another nudges a box of daffodils just 2 inches to the left, like that tiny move might change how the day unfolds. Even Cohen, who never seems to care about appearances, takes one last glance at the chrysanthemums, like he's fixing his collar before a photo. You walk slowly, holding 2 long stems of fragrant eucalyptus, like props for a dance that hasn't started yet. In the north aisle, the dahlias have lined themselves up like they did it on their own, from deep wine, red to coral, from coral to soft pink, and finally to almost transparent white. A watercolor gradient that looks hand-painted. The morning sun comes in at a slant now, lighting up their petals like tissue paper held against a window. In the middle of the market, a whole table is filled with wildflowers. White daisies, soft purple veronicas, pastel sweet peas, and tiny blue blossoms whose names you still don't know. But they smell like childhood in a backyard. It looks casual, but it's not. It's a choreographed mess, like someone poured out a Sunday picnic and it settled into beauty all on its own. Farther down, the sunflowers are set in a zigzag pattern. Each one seems to be leaning in a different direction, like they're arguing about the best way to face the light. Not one of them looks the same way, and that's what makes them real. You place your eucalyptus stems in an empty corner of the greenery stall. They slide into the fresh water with a sound so soft it feels imaginary. The balsamic scent spreads slowly into the air, bringing the calm of a faraway forest. A smell that clears your head, like blowing dust off a long-closed book. Next to you, Yannick is setting down spray roses. Those mini ones that come in clusters, like tiny pocket gardens. He's working quietly, but with a mix of focus and wonder on his face. It's looking good, huh? You say. He doesn't answer right away. Just looks around slowly, taking it all in. Then smiles with his eyes and says, "Yeah, looks like the flowers are ready for visitors now." And that's exactly it. The change isn't in the shape of things. It's in the feeling. The market isn't crowded yet, but the first customers are trickling in, one by one, alone in pairs. A woman pushing a stroller, another holding a folded canvas bag, probably brought from home just for this. They don't talk much, don't rush. Their steps are short, their gazes long. Some stop in front of the flowers and just breathe, like prayer. One woman with short hair stands before the daffodils. She touches one petal lightly with a single finger, says something under her breath, maybe to herself, maybe to the flower, then steps forward again, pauses, and snaps a photo on her phone. No flash, no rush. A young man in a plaid shirt is scribbling in a small notebook. You see him almost every day. He never buys anything, just observes, writes, and leaves. You've thought about asking what he writes down, but part of you likes not knowing. Mystery has its own kind of beauty. You take a few steps back to look at everything, and it feels strange. You helped put all this together, but now it feels like something else. Like the flowers rearranged themselves without you. Like they chose their final look on their own. The sun moves higher. A beam of light comes through the side window and hits one of the zinc buckets. The light bounces in rings across the floor, skipping over the tables. One beam forms a near-perfect arch above the tulips. It looks like a doorway. You pull out your phone and snap a picture. Not to post, just to remember. The radio music is still soft. Piano and accordion, the kind of tune that belongs in an old European film, from a time that doesn't really exist anymore. It matches everything. Flowers set like they're on display. Customers moving like they're in a museum. Workers moving like they're in a quiet ballet. You take this calm moment to walk over to the ready-made arrangements. One of the florists is finishing up a bouquet with a gray linen ribbon. You watch from a distance. He spins the stems, trims the edges with a sharp pair of scissors, ties the ribbon, and tilts the bouquet slightly, like he's straightening a groom's suit. There's elegance in his movements. And care, too. Nearby, Bram is working on a bucket, labeled by hand. Exclusive, special orders. He looks more focused than usual. You know why. The Van Halstraat client is coming today. The one who always orders flowers with overly poetic requests. She wants peonies in a contemplative mood, he says, not looking up. Is that a real thing? Apparently. Well, good luck. I'll need it, he says, tying a dramatic double knot in the ribbon. Almost theatrical. You laugh and keep moving. On the way back, you pass the peony loved by the woman with the white scarf. It's still there, but it's different now. Open, slightly more flushed with color. The light is hitting it just right, and for one wild second, it looks like it's glowing, like it knows it's being admired. You step closer, move one leaf that had fallen across it. That's it. Just one small gesture, a quiet kindness, then step away. There's nothing else to fix. The displays are finished. The stalls are dressed. The market is no longer just a place. It's a scene, an invitation, a sigh. And you're standing right in the middle of it, carrying a bit of scent in your coat, your eyes a little damp, and a quiet certainty deep inside. You helped something bloom. You had heard about her long before you ever saw her. People whispered her name, almost like they were telling a local legend. The woman from Van Halstraat. She wasn't just a customer. She was an event, And according to the unofficial traditions of the market, everyone eventually had at least one story to tell about her, even if no one really knew who she was. She always arrived by bike, always wearing the same moss-green wool coat, buttoned all the way to the top, with wooden buttons like old eyes watching, always with vague requests, and always speaking about flowers, as if they were characters from a novel she hadn't finished writing. Today she was coming to pick up a phone order. According to Bram, the request was simple to understand and impossible to fulfill. Peonies in a contemplative state, not emotional but still hopeful. You're still trying to figure out whether that's poetry, provocation, or some new botanical classification. What does she even want? You ask, watching Bram select 3 pale pink peonies. He stays quiet, forehead slightly furrowed. He lines up the flowers on a piece of beige tissue paper, spins one of them slowly, like he's searching for the right expression. She wants the flowers to look like they're deep in thought, but not sad, he says, as if that's the most normal thing in the world. Did she ever say what she does for a living? People say she's a literature professor, or philosophy, or maybe a writer. Some think she's a retired actress. Nobody really knows. She never says. You nod. And why only peonies? Because according to her, all the other flowers tried too hard to please. You watch Bram finish the bouquet. He picks a raw linen ribbon, folds it precisely, ties 2 slow knots, and then pauses. He just stands there, looking at the flowers, as if waiting for them to say something, a sign, a whisper. These look meditative enough, he asks, not joking, but not serious either. You step closer, tilt your head, take a good look. One of the peonies does seem silent. The other 2, more closed, look like pages in a book yet to be opened. I think so, you say. But maybe that one in the corner has too many opinions. Bram laughs, a short, real laugh. He swaps out the bold one for a more reserved bloom. Smaller, softer. The bouquet changes. Not sadder, just quieter. It feels grounded now, like a group of people gathered in shared silence, almost like a spiritual meeting between plants. As Bram adjusts the ribbon, Cohen walks by carrying a tray of empty cups. He glances at the bouquet and says, "She's coming today." You nod. And the order, peonies in a contemplative state. Cohen gives a half smile and keeps walking. Let's hope she's open to subtext today. You and Bram exchange a knowing look. A contemplative flower carries more responsibility than you'd think. Just a few minutes later, she arrives. The woman from Van Halstraat enters the market with the ease of someone who knows all the shortcuts, all the scents, and all the changes in light. Her old bike is parked by the outer wall. The wicker basket in front looks like it was custom made to carry bouquets. She's wearing the same wool coat. Her scarf has abstract patterns in shades of rust and sand. She walks in a straight line, like she knows exactly where to go and how to be seen along the way. She stops in front of Bram and says, "Did you bring them?" It's a short word, no theatrics, but it's not a regular question. It feels like the first line in a play, a scene that started before you even got there. Bram hands her the bouquet with both hands, respectfully, like he's offering a cup of water in the middle of a ceremony. She accepts it, gently peels back the paper using only the tips of her fingers, moves the bouquet side to side. She studies it, tilts her head, closes one eye, like she's testing the light symmetry. You feel like you're watching an art critic deep in analysis. "These are almost right," she says. "Almost." The silence that follows is thick, like morning fog. Bram stays quiet, waiting. "Almost?" he asks after a moment. She points to one of the peonies in the center, the one slightly more open than the others. This one is on the edge of euphoria. You try not to laugh, or cough, or breathe too loud. You take a step to the side and pretend to be extremely focused on a bucket of greenery. Graham hesitates, looks closely at the flower. "I can switch it," he offers, but she raises a hand. "No, now that I've seen it, I need her just like that." She closes the paper wrap, like someone finishing a chapter, then reaches into her coat pocket and pulls out a small wallet. Pays, with coins, one by one, slowly, as if the coins themselves were part of the story. She gives a soft nod in thanks and turns to go. But before leaving, she glances at you. "You are new here." You nod, your voice momentarily gone. "I like how you've been arranging the chrysanthemums. They seem to be breathing better lately." You smile, one of those smiles where you don't know what to do with your hands. "Thank you." She walks over to her bike, places the bouquet carefully in the basket, climbs on, and says before pedaling away, "A well-placed flower can change the course of a morning," and she rides off. Without looking back, you watch her until she turns the corner. The bouquet sways gently with the motion of the bicycle. It looks like a quiet passenger, but for some reason, you don't go back to work right away. You just stand there, looking at the empty space she left behind. The path she took still feels full of her presence and the silence she carried with her. Bram returns to the table, stretches his shoulders, exhales, and says, "One day, I'm going to write a book just about her requests." What would the title be? A Practical Guide to Interpreting Peonies. You both laugh, but it's the kind of laugh that carries relief and reverence. You return to your section, and strangely, everything seems sharper. The colors, the shapes, the way the flowers lean. Even the dried branches seem more alive. You pick up a bent eucalyptus stem and think about straightening it. But no, you leave it just as it is. Imperfection suddenly feels like its own language. You start reorganizing the buckets, one by one, a little slower than usual. As you wipe down the counter, you hear the radio in the background. A soft, instrumental melody, unhurried. In the distance, someone opens the back door. The market continues. But you feel different. And you think, while looking at a single dahlia that bloomed faster than the rest, maybe that's the secret, letting things exist just as they are, not trying to force them into our plans. Flower doesn't need to convince you. It just needs to be there, like a pause between words, like a silence that doesn't need explaining, like a morning that hasn't yet decided whether to rain and is perfect because of it. You know this moment. It happens every day, somewhere between 7:45 and 8:05 a.m., a small window of time when the rhythm of the market changes. What was slow and thoughtful suddenly picks up speed, but without losing its grace. It's the moment when the market stops being just a display and starts becoming a need. Customers start arriving. Couriers wait for orders. Bikes pile up at the entrance. Buckets are emptied and refilled quickly, but with no unnecessary noise. You call this part of your shift the silent rush, because even though everyone is moving fast, no one is actually running. It's a controlled urgency, polite, almost meditative. Footsteps are steady but gentle. Voices stay low. Movements are precise. You return to your station, where the sunflowers need to be refreshed. Some were picked earlier. Others have lost a bit of their shine. And the new ones just arrived. You remove the wilted ones, clean the rim of the bucket, fill it with fresh water, and gently place the new flowers in, giving each stem a slight twist so it settles naturally. Next to you, Yannick carries a box of pre-made arrangements. He looks more focused than usual, talks to himself in Polish, counts flowers under his breath, and scribbles numbers in fast handwriting. You catch words like stary, pinch, shisht, and realize you're starting to recognize them without meaning to. Will you make it in time, you ask? There's always time, never leftovers, he replies, still walking. Across the aisle, the girl with the messy bun pushes a cart full of hydrangeas. A ribbon flutters from one of the buckets. You signal to her. She nods with a smile, the kind that doesn't show teeth. Everything's moving fast, but no one bumps into anyone else. The radio plays something a bit livelier now. Still instrumental, but with more rhythm. It matches the mood, like the song was picked just for this part of the day. You feel a bit of sweat on your back. Not uncomfortable, just a reminder that your body is awake. The breeze coming through the warehouse eases the warmth and brings back the scent of wet flowers and fresh coffee. Cohen walks by with a clipboard. He watches everything like a conductor leading an orchestra with no sheet music. Now and then, he mutters things like, "Tulips, aisle 2, or "We need more chrysanthemums in the east," but he never has to shout. Everyone gets it. You bend down to grab a bundle of lavender. As you rise, you spot a thin trail of water on the floor. A leaky hose, a full bucket. Doesn't matter. You wipe it up quickly with a rag. Quietly. Here, small problems are fixed before they become anyone's problem. To your left, Bram talks with a delivery guy. Their conversation is clipped and clear. Name, address, bouquet type. The order tag is laminated, held in place with a rubber band. You recognize the handwriting. It's the woman who wanted the almost contemplative peonies. The courier rides an electric bike, gray helmet, flower box backpack, phone clipped to the handlebars. As he leaves, Bram turns to you and says, he always makes his deliveries on time. And if the flower isn't contemplative enough, she always forgives the delivery guys, says they only carry, they don't interpret. You laugh, then return to your work. It's nearly 8 a.m. The entrance is crowded now. Customers, small florists, people in a hurry, carrying lists and clipped conversations. The girl with the bun helps 2 people at once. Yannick pushes 2 carts at the same time. Cohen has vanished somewhere in the back aisles. You keep turning, trimming, refilling. And yet, the silence holds. Not an empty silence, but a purposeful one. A shared respect that no one talks about, but everyone feels. You rearrange the wild flowers. One customer asks for anything that looks happy. You make a quick bouquet, daisies, green leaves, and a bright yellow flower no one ever seems to know the name of. He thanks you, like someone receiving an old favor. pays with loose coins, walks off quickly. A woman asks what a flower is called. You say the name in Dutch, in English, and then point to the sign, Leeuwenbeek. She smiles, takes a photo, and says she'll Google it later. You smile too. Sometimes a flower doesn't need to be understood, just chosen. A little later, around 8:05, you step back from your station and take in the scene. People moving, carts rolling, flowers being examined, smelled, turned, approved, packages being sealed, scissors snipping stems, ribbons being pulled with teeth. All of it flows with delicate precision, like a dance choreographed by instinct. And you feel something rise in your chest, a quiet joy, a kind of pride that doesn't need a name. You're part of this, not as background, but as someone who carries beauty without saying a word. You go back to your corner, check the buckets, adjust a loose leaf, take a deep breath. It's still early. There's still so much to do, but you're here, in the heart of the morning, rushing without haste, delivering without leaving, and you think the world might be in a hurry out there, but in here, even urgency knows how to wait. You had already noticed it a few days ago. There was one cart with a different wheel, not broken, not crooked, just stubborn. It made a very specific sound. Click, click, tick. Click, click, tick. Only when turning left. When going straight, it was silent. Turning right, almost nothing, but tilted just a bit to the left, and there it went, noisy, cheerful, like it wanted to be part of the conversation. Today, it was the only cart available when you needed an extra one to restock. Single-stem flowers in aisle 2. You didn't hesitate. You already knew who you were dealing with. You grabbed the cold metal handle, felt that little pull backward, and pushed it with the kind of care you give to someone whose quirks you understand. Click, click, tick. The sound echoed softly down the still empty aisle. You smiled to yourself. Good morning to you too, you whispered, like greeting an old friend. The cart rolled through the first turn, humming its little tune. Some people looked, others didn't. No one complained. Everyone already knew that wheel. Cohen once said, that cart's like an old person, not worth fixing when it's already become a personality. You walked slowly, guiding the cart toward the roses. They needed rearranging, and some buckets needed to be replaced. The floor was already marked with water, fallen petals, and a few crushed leaves. The scent there was strong. Sweet perfume mixed with the damp metal, like the flowers had spent the night dreaming of something long ago. When you arrived, you parked the cart by the table and locked the back wheels with your foot. The noisy one gave one final click, as if to say, for now. You started collecting the emptier buckets, took 2 at a time to the sink, cleaned them, refilled them, brought them back, a routine you know by heart, but one that never gets dull. Each flower has its own story with water. Some wilt fast, some last for days, and then there's always one that surprises you, like a tiny rose you thought had passed its time, but today decided to bloom all over again. Between trips, you returned to the cart. The noise returned too. Click, click, tick. Only now it echoed louder. The market was quieter. Fewer customers. Co-workers more spread out. And that wheel's rhythm became the soundtrack of your route. As if the cart itself was announcing, flowers on the move, make way. You didn't mind. In fact, you kind of liked it. The sound became so steady that after a while it felt like rhythm. Your steps adjusted. Your breath found its own beat. The cart turned into a kind of dance partner, a comedian that only showed up to add some humor to the scene. Janek passed between the dahlias and lisianthus. He glanced at the cart, raising an eyebrow. That one again. He picks me, you said. He shook his head like he disapproved, but smiled and kept going. You continued now with a bucket of hydrangeas in each hand. Returning to the cart, the wheel let out a longer click. Maybe a sigh, maybe a request for a break. You listened. You rolled the cart to the side of the aisle near the service entrance, where sunlight filtered in through narrow beams. The floor sparkled with golden dots, like it had been dusted with magic. The air was fresher, footsteps quieter. You leaned against the wall for a moment, breathed, and watched. In front of you, two co-workers swapped satin ribbons at the bouquet station. One hummed something soft in French. The other whistled off-key. Their notes didn't match, but somehow it worked. Near the door, the barista pushed another cart, this one completely silent, but it lacked charm. You thought that quietly, with affection for your old noisy companion. You nudged the wheel with your foot. It turned slightly, letting out a soft creak, a little grumble. It's all right, you whispered. We'll be back soon. Then you heard Cohen's voice in the distance. We need help in the lily section. You waved back, grabbed the cart with both hands, and got ready for another trip. Click, click, tick. You smiled. The lilies were in full bloom today. Open petals, strong fragrance, tall stems. You rearranged the buckets with slow, fluid motions, placed the new ones, adjusted the labels, swapped out damp leaves for dry ones. And when you were done, you stepped back and looked. The cart was there, still a little crooked as always. But there, you walked over, straightened its wheels, and said, "One more round." Click, maybe that was a yes. So, the two of you headed off again, toward the next aisle. The rush of the last few hours slows down like the tide. The market doesn't stop, but it softens. The sound of rolling carts fades. Voices drop a tone. All the flowers are now in place, hydrated, lined up, awake. Some tables are starting to empty with early pickups. Others are being prepped for the next batches. Everything seems to breathe in sync with you. It's around 9:10 when Cohen shows up at the end of the aisle, raising one hand like he's calling you without actually calling. Break time. You nod. At this point, the pause isn't just welcome. It's earned. Your body says so in your shoulders, your finger, your lower back. Not in pain, just in the soft echo of steady effort. You walk through the market with looser steps. By now, you know every path like muscle memory. The curve after the hydrangeas, the step by the chrysanthemums, the narrow aisle next to the eucalyptus. Even the sound of your boots on the damp floor feels familiar now. The break room has no sign, no fancy door. It sits tucked between two delivery lanes with a handwritten sign that reads, "Pause." The B is halfway faded. Inside, everything is different. The light is softer. The walls are off-white, slightly stained. There's a big wooden table in the center surrounded by mismatched chairs. Two have cushions. One creaks. Another has a crooked leg propped up with cardboard. But it's cozy, because it's a place where no one has to pretend anything. You choose your favorite chair, the one facing the foggy window. Drop your backpack on the floor. The barista has already left a thermos on the table, and beside it, a tray of still warm cinnamon rolls, slightly misshapen and dusted with sugar, like they were made slowly by someone who understands the meaning of breaks. You grab one, tear it apart with your hands, and the scent of cinnamon fills the room. The texture is soft. The taste, simple and deep. Cinnamon, butter, a touch of brown sugar, and something you can't name but reminds you of childhood. On the table there's a crumpled newspaper, Het Parool, today's date, already read by someone who left tiny marks, a fold in the middle of the culture section, a coffee stain by the weather, and a legible scribble next to an article about renovations in one of the city's canals. You unfold it gently and scan the headlines. Nothing too important, nothing urgent. And maybe that's the point. Sometimes it feels good to read things that don't ask anything of you. Jonik walks in with a pack of cookies in hand. He sits in the corner, opens it slowly and offers, "Too sweet," he warns. You smile and offer part of your cinnamon roll. Cinnamon, he accepts. And for a few minutes the two of you chew in silence, while the old radio, always tuned low, plays music that sounds like it's drifting out of a French cafe from the 1950s. Bram shows up soon after, carrying a dented mug and a folded order slip in his pocket. He sits heavily, removes his cap, runs his hand through his hair. "You know, which flowers are the most work?" he asks. You and Yannick exchange a look. "All of them," Yannick replies. "The ones named after women," Bram says. "Rosa, Livia, Iris." I swear they hear it and get more demanding just because they're being called by name. You laugh. "And the nameless ones? Oh, they just want to exist. That's easier." The conversation goes on a little longer. Someone mentions rain in the forecast. Someone else comments on how strong the new batch of lavender smells. And you just listen, body relaxed, hands still scented with cinnamon, soul comfortable. There's a kind of silence that only exists between people who share a routine. A silence full of meaning. No one needs to fill it. It just exists, like a warm blanket at the right time. Before getting up, you glance out the window. Outside, a flock of pigeons lands on a rooftop. A bike passes slowly. The day out there is just beginning. But in here, it feels like you've already lived a full morning. You get up, toss the wrapper in the trash, take a sip of water, and stretch your arms. Your shoulders thank you. So do your feet. Back in the warehouse, the scent of wet flowers greets you like an old friend. The light has shifted. It now comes from above, more direct, more golden, and you feel like this break did something to you. Maybe it just rearranged your thoughts, like flowers in buckets. Maybe it just let you breathe. You walk to the freesia section, and without even thinking, you begin again. Hands in water, flowers in hand, the world moving at the right pace. You were just getting back into your rhythm when you noticed something that had gone unseen for hours. A forgotten bucket in the west corner of the market. It was tucked beside a small portable greenhouse, almost hidden behind a stack of empty wooden crates. The metal rim caught the late morning light, now sharper, and you spotted a faint shimmer of water, a sign it hadn't dried out completely. You didn't remember putting that bucket there. It wasn't Yannick. It wasn't Bram. Maybe it was going, or maybe the bucket had just ended up there, carried by someone distracted, or maybe, like many things in the market, it had simply followed the quiet direction of time. You walked closer. Inside, you found 3 bunches of orange ranunculus, a little tired, but still standing strong. The outer petals had started to soften, but the centers held their shape, like a thought that hasn't quite faded. The water was slightly murky. The bucket felt cold. The air around it had that particular smell. Damp flour mixed with old metal, a scent of waiting. You crouched and touched one of the blooms. Its texture reminded you of wax paper, thin, delicate. A ranunculus doesn't try to outshine other flowers. It just exists, perfectly round, as if it were a button that never fully opens. You thought maybe they were waiting for someone. Maybe they'd been forgotten. Or maybe no one wanted to deal with something past its prime. You lifted the bucket carefully. The metal handles creaked a little, like they were saying, "Thanks for noticing." The weight wasn't heavy, familiar, like a wet towel or a bag of ripe fruit. On your way back, a few people noticed. "That bucket was still over there?" Cohen asked. You gave a small nod. "Ranunculus," you said like it was reason enough. He smiled. "Too pretty to end up in the back. You didn't want to place them with the trendier flowers, or in the discount corner. They didn't belong there. They needed a different space. Not flashy, but meaningful. You chose a smaller shelf, next to the ivy and snake plants. A little dimmer, but away from the busier aisles. You wiped the outside of the bucket with a clean cloth, changed the water, then carefully wrote a new tag. Orange ranunculus, quiet bloom. You stepped back. There, in the calm of the west side, they seemed to settle in. They didn't need to shine, didn't need to prove anything. They just were round, steady, and soft-spoken. You felt something settle inside you, too. A quiet shift, a small realignment. Sometimes saving the world isn't what's needed. Sometimes it's enough to just move a bucket. Janek passed by carrying a tray of potted plants. He stopped. "Are those yours?" "They were forgotten," you said. He looked at them for a moment, tilted his head. "They look more important now." You smiled. A woman passed by the aisle. She paused, looked, asked without touching, "What kind of flowers are those?" "Ranunculus," you answered. "Never heard of them. They look like little planets." You loved that. Little planets, orange ranunculus, spinning quietly in their own small orbits. She thanked you and moved on. You stood there a bit longer, watching the effect of a small change. Farther down the aisle, a freesia arrangement sagged. Cohen adjusted it. A flower fell to the floor. No one was hurt. A customer wandered in, unsure of what they were looking for. A delivery guy asked to use the restroom. A dry leaf blew in through the door. Everything returned to its rhythm. But you, deep down, were still focused on the west side. What started as a simple action, finding, carrying, placing, had become something else. It had become care. It had become intention. It had almost become poetry. You returned to your station. There was still work to do, but somehow everything felt lighter now. Maybe it was the circular flowers, maybe the clean water, or maybe just the fact that For a few minutes, you let yourself slow down and notice something everyone else had walked right past. It's almost 11 a.m. when she walks in. You don't see her arrive. You're crouched down, rearranging the carnation buckets, wiping a water stain on the floor with a damp blue cloth. But you hear the sound of sneakers against the floor, a light step dragging a little, like someone still learning to walk with confidence. When you stand up, she's already standing beside the display, no more than 7 years old. A red hoodie, a small backpack on her back, and a butterfly clip in her light hair. She's holding a sketchbook, one of those hardcover ones with rounded corners covered in stickers. Next to her, a man with a short beard, maybe her father. He watches from a short distance with the patience of someone who knows this visit will last longer than planned. The girl is quiet, just watching. "Good morning," you say, smiling. She lifts her head and gives you a tiny nod. "Do you like flowers?" She nods again. Then she looks around, as if choosing the exact right moment to speak. "Can I draw?" You hesitate for a second. "Of course. What do you want to draw?" "That one." She points to a yellow dahlia, almost perfectly round, its petals spiraling in perfect symmetry. You slide the bucket slightly to the left so she can see better. She sits cross-legged on the floor, opens her notebook, and starts. You go back to your work, but keep an eye on her from the corner of your eye. The pencil moves fast, with confidence. No erasing, no rethinking. She draws the way some people breathe, with no effort, no doubt, like she just knows. Her father watches from afar, leaning against one of the market pillars, coffee in hand. Bram walks by, says, "Good morning." The father replies quietly. The girl switches pencils, now using an orange shade to add detail to the center of the flower, then a touch of green on the leaves. The drawing isn't technical, but it's precise. It captures the feeling of the flower, the spirit. When she finishes, she closes the notebook and stays quiet for a few more seconds. You walk over. "Can I see?" She hesitates, then turns the page toward you. The flower takes up half the paper, big, centered, with firm lines and little details you hadn't even noticed. How the petals bend slightly on the left side, or how the stem curves gently back. It's beautiful. She looks like she's dancing, right? You smile. She really does. Her dad walks over slowly. "Ready to go?" She nods. But before getting up, she carefully tears the page from her notebook. She holds it out to you. It's for you. You hold it with both hands, like it's sacred. Are you sure? The flower is yours, so the drawing has to be too. You tuck the page into your work notebook, slipping it inside the plastic sleeve between the order list and the delivery sheet. She stands, slings the backpack onto one shoulder, and says, "Bye, flower lady. Bye, little artist." And then she leaves. Her father gives a quiet thank you with a small gesture, and they walk toward the exit, stopping once or twice to look at other flowers along the way. You stay where you are for a moment, holding your notebook against your chest, not just keeping the drawing safe, but the whole moment. The market continues. Cohen walks by giving instructions. Yannick carries a bucket full of sunflowers. A lady picks through chrysanthemums using a magnifying glass. And you're still standing there, feeling like the world stopped for 5 minutes just so you could remember what lightness feels like. You put the notebook into your bag, take a deep breath, and get back to work. A few minutes pass. The tables begin to empty. The remaining flowers are rearranged. Some buckets are stacked. The radio plays a slow piano melody. Outside, the sun finally shows up, golden, unhurried, slipping in through the cracks in the ceiling like a sheer curtain. Cohen signals the end of the shift with a finger snap. You help, shut off the water, sweep up a stray petal, close a box of ribbons. Walking out through the market's side door, the world feels different. Not just a place of labels and deliveries, but a place where a flower can dance, and a child can notice it before any adult does. You walk slowly down the side street. The breeze brushes your face gently, and you wonder how many more flowers you'll see, how many drawings you'll keep, how many buckets you'll carry from forgotten corners to the right place. And you realize maybe none of those answers matter, because it's all already worth it. For the smell, for the color, for the bend of a stem, for the sound of a squeaky wheel, for the silence that speaks. You're home now. The shoes were left by the door. The coat is gently hanging from the hook, the one that's already starting to bend with time. Your bag rests on the kitchen chair, and inside it, tucked away like a quiet secret, is the drawing of a dancing flower made by a little girl who might never know what she did for you. The kettle whistles softly. You turn it off before it gets too eager. You pour the hot water over a tea bag, chamomile and honey, and the scent rises like warm sheets being stretched into the air. The steam draws invisible shapes, and for a moment you almost see the outline of a dahlia floating there inside the mist. You sit down slowly. Your legs still remember the path between the market aisles. Your arms still recall the weight of the forgotten bucket from the west side. Your hands still carry the feeling of the flower's touch. But now, your body is in rest mode. Your shoulders sink. Your eyelids grow heavier, and the world seems to quiet down with you. Outside, the city moves to another rhythm. Bikes glide over the sidewalks. People talk in cafes. Boats slip silently through the canals. And you, inside, still carry a market that has already closed for the day but hasn't left you. The scent of carnations, the sound of that squeaky wheel, the taste of cinnamon bread, and the child's voice saying, "The flower is yours." You lean your head against the back of the chair. The mug sits warm in your hands, and a question drifts by, light as a thought with no urgency. How many invisible flowers does the world hold? You don't need to answer now, because maybe the answer is hidden in the way you pushed the cart without complaint, or in how you tucked in the loose ribbon on a bouquet, or in the care you gave a handwritten label. Or maybe the answer doesn't matter. Maybe what really matters is remembering that there's beauty in the routines no one sees, that there's poetry in the gestures without an audience, and that a whole day can be worth it just because a child handed you a drawing of a flower. The kettle has cooled. The light is now almost shadow, and silence fills everything with a tenderness you recognize. You close your eyes, and for just a moment, it feels like you're back there, among the buckets, among the quiet voices, among the flowers that always wake before the world, and you fall asleep with a small smile, no rush, like a flower that opens just enough. End of script. Sweet dreams.